Hi, I'm Sean McGowan. Many solo jazz guitarists look toward the piano for inspiration because it's an instrument that lends itself very well to unaccompanied playing. The styles of great guitarists Lenny Breau and Earl Klugh are heavily influenced by pianists such as Bill Evans, McCoy Tyner, Keith Jarrett, and Herbie Hancock. Bill Evans's voicings were often concise and based on guide tones or chord partials, 2 or 3 note chord voicings that imply the harmony without explicitly stating all of the chord tones. Lenny Breau was particularly influenced by Bill Evans, incorporating Evans's left-hand voicings into his rhythmic accompaniment while playing lead lines on top. In this lesson, we'll explore ways to integrate some piano-like voicings into solo guitar improvisation. We'll work on accompanying our lead lines in the styles of Breau, Klugh, and others by using simple guide tones, voicings based on intervals of fourths, and small chord partials. Separating parts on the piano is fairly easy, with each hand essentially free to function independently of the other. It's an entirely different story on the guitar, where both hands must constantly work in tandem, and with an absolute maximum of 6 notes sounding at any one moment. As we'll see in the next few examples, guitarists like Lenny Breau answered this challenge by playing lines on top of compact guide tone voicings. To start, here's a simple scale line on top of guide tone voicings, moving through a 2-5-1 in C major. So we're essentially moving through D minor 7 guide tones, G7, and C major. Let's do it in time. 1, 2, 3, and... The D minor 7 and G7 chords don't have roots in this case, but the strength of the guide tones help to keep the harmonic motion intact. This next example also moves through a 2-5-1, this time using guide tone voicings up the fretboard and adding roots on the first beat of each measure. The trick with both of these examples is to keep the half-note guide tones sustaining while playing the eighth note lines on top. 1, 2, 3, and... You can also play lines over a steady quarter note comping rhythm. 1, 2, 3, and... To create a drastic distinction between the parts, try playing the guide tone chord staccato while allowing the melody notes to ring out. Let's hear that example again, a little slower. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's another example, this time making use of extended guide tone voicings in the accompaniment, creating an inner voice movement typical of Bill Evans. 1, 2, 3, and... Let's take that example a little slower. 1, 2, 3, and... Lenny Breau would often move the guide tone voicings down to the A and D strings with an extension on the G string, which allows for more room to play lead lines on the top 2 strings. 1, 2, 3, and... Let's take that example slower. 1, 2, 3, and... Troy Tyner is a legendary jazz piano player, and one of his trademarks is his comping based on voicings featuring stacked fourths, which are 3 to 5 note chord voicings comprised strictly of fourth intervals. For instance, C, F, B flat, and E flat. You can take any scale and harmonize it with fourths. Here's a C Dorian scale. 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, 1, harmonized in fourths. You'll see that just about every voicing features a pair of stacked fourths. The third and seventh voicings are exceptions in that each one features a fourth and a tritone, which is a raised fourth or a lowered fifth, to adhere to the notes of the scale. So we have fourths, fourths, but in this voicing, to keep using the notes of the scale, we have to add a tritone plus a fourth on top. A 1, 2, 3, and. These types of voicings sound great over vamps that have only 1 or 2 chords. Here's that example again, a little slower this time, over just a D minor 7 sound. A 1, 2, 3, and. You can also easily move the chord voicings up or down a half step to create some wonderful additional tension. A 1, 2, 3, and. And here's that example slowed down just a little bit. A 1, 2, 3, and. And again, that line is also over just a D minor 7 chord. Bill Evans often utilized beautiful and compact voicings that implied the harmony without necessarily relying on guide tones. He favored voicings that contained clusters, or small intervals like seconds, that added an elegant and an impressionistic character to his famous accompaniment. Let me give you an idea of some of these clusters. So for D minor 7, you could use a voicing like this, and G7, this, and C minor. These types of voicings will really add a distinctly different sort of contemporary sound to your playing than you're probably used to, as most common guitar chords are arranged in thirds. Let's take a look at some of these voicings in the context of a 2-5-1 in C minor. A 1, 2, 3, and. Let's take that example again, slowly this time. A 1, 2, 3, and. This next 2-5-1 example uses voicings that have roots in the bass with clusters at or near the top, sometimes even bumping up against the melody. In this case, don't worry about crowding the melody, as this approach also creates some really nice space within the voicing and is very reminiscent of Thelonious Monk's piano style. A 1, 2, 3, and. And that example a little slower. A 1, 2, 3, and. For more practice, let's check out Love is Beautiful, an etude based on the changes of Beautiful Love, a great standard in D minor. Measures 1 through 8 feature chord partials supporting a lead line in the styles of Bill Evans and Lenny Breau. While the roots aren't necessary in this approach, it is nice to drop them in occasionally where you have an open string available. For example, the E minor 7 flat 5 and A7 chords in measures 2 and 8. Meanwhile, measures 9 through 16 utilize voicings in stacked fourths, with a cool figure against the low E pedal in measure 15. Measures 17 through 24 feature basic guide tone voicings underneath melodic lines, and then the etude wraps up nicely with some melodic lines on top of a quarter note guide tones in bars 29 through 30. A 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, and... Now let's take a look at the etude, but let's slow it down a little bit and let's take a look at each 8-bar section. We're going to play it with the metronome this time, and let's keep the metronome at 100 beats per minute with quarter notes, but since we're going to keep the metronome clicks on beats 2 and 4, we'll actually set the metronome to 50 and count off on beats 2 and 4. So here are the first 8 bars of the etude. 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, and... So again, the trick here is to try to keep those top notes sustaining as much as possible while making the underlying chords staccato, and this helps create a real nice separation of parts. Okay, let's look at the next 8 bars of this etude. We're keeping our metronome at 50. A 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3. We have a lot of 4-note stacked fourths chord voicings, and for the most part I'm playing those with my thumb and first 3 fingers, but occasionally on the top 4 strings, as in the second example, G minor 7, I'm actually using all 4 fingers. Experiment with both and see what's comfortable for you, but on the top 4 strings I actually like using my 4 fingers and then move back to using the thumb on the middle 5, on the middle 4 strings rather, heading into measure 3. So we have using the thumb and 3 fingers, and then all fingers on top. And then back to the thumb and 3 fingers. Okay, let's move into the next 8-bar section. A 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3. And again, really try to sustain those top notes in the voicing and make the chords legato or staccato depending on what you hear. Okay, The last 8 bars of the song start right back in with a D minor 7 chord. Here we go. A 1, 2, 3, and... Thanks a lot for joining me for this lesson. For more fingerstyle jazz guitar instruction, be sure to check out the rest of my fingerstyle jazz guitar essentials lessons available at acousticguitar.com. For Acoustic Guitar, I'm Sean McGowan.